Alright gang, we're just going to take a couple quick minutes here to review our rounding rules, if I can say that accurately. So when we're done here, we're going to be able to identify the locations of a number by its place value and to be able to round. Again, this is a review topic from years back. I just want to touch on it before moving forward. So first of all, here's place value chart. In case you have forgotten your place values, you can refer back to it. Numbers 1 are larger. We express obviously in front of the decimal, and we group them into groupings of 3, which we call periods. So we start with our ones, tens, and hundreds. That makes up the ones period. We then get into our thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, and so on. And typically, we will separate those periods with commas as we move up the place values. Billions and then trillions and so on. So this chart doesn't. This is just sort of the common things that we would deal with in this particular class. Behind the decimal, we get into our tenths, our hundreds, our thousands, 10,000s, and so on. And you'll notice that these values here correspond, because we're talking about multiples of tens and tenths, to these values here. It's just remember, THS, we're talking decimals. So if you need the chart, if you don't remember your place values, here is your chart for those. And then here we have our rounding rules. Again, this is, and I'm not going to read this whole thing for you. I'll go over this chart as I go through examples, but here are the rules. Here's what you do. You'll notice that when we're rounding from 0 through 4 and 5 to 9, we do have what happens when we're in front of the decimal or behind the decimal. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right into it. So in A here, we're going to round 24,356 and 453 tenths, hundredths, thousandths to the nearest 10, which means first I have to identify the number in the tens position, which in this particular case is the 5. Okay, and again, and that's step number 1. This was on the previous pages. Identify what number we're rounding, or place we're rounding to. We then look at the next number, and we will use this number to determine whether we round up or not. And the question here basically becomes, is this number closer to 24,350, or is this closer to 24,360? This number here will determine that. 0 through 4, the 5 stays. This number, 5 through 9, we round up. So in this case, I've got 5 through 9, so 5 here is going to become a 6. Now these numbers in the front will all remain the same in this case. So I just sort of bring them down. And when I round up, this again, 56 is actually becoming 60. We're rounding up to the nearest 10 in this case. So I need to fill in that spot. Now, because I run into the 0 or the decimal, I do not need to add anything beyond that. I've got to the decimal. So 24,360. Again, rounding to the nearest 10. Are we closer to 50 or 60? Well, 56 is closer to 60. Okay. Nearest 1,000. Well, in this particular case, this 4 right here is sitting in the thousands position. So the basic question here is this number, the 24,356 and 453 thousandths, is this closer to 24,000 or is it closer to 25,000? That is the question. And our number here in the next position will determine that. Again, numbers from 0 to 4, we will remain or round down, or keep it down, I guess, depending on how you want to look at it. If this number's 5 or higher, we're rounding up, well, lower than 5, so we are closer to 24,000 instead of 25,000, and these numbers up until I run into the decimal will just be zeros. We'll just fill them with placeholder zeros, and so in this particular case we are closer to 24,000. Similar things happen behind the decimal, so to the nearest tenth, which is that particular 4, and I will use the next number beyond to determine. You'll notice here this is a number 5 or higher, which means 4 becomes 5. Now because we are behind the decimal, we will drop these decimal places. We are not going to put zeros in there. Now, if we were asked, I guess in theory, to round to, well, if we were asked to round the nearest thousandth, then we would go to a different place. But all of these will stay as part of the problem, or part of the number. So to the nearest tenth, we are at 24,356 and 5 tenths. Nearest thousandth, well, the 3 in this particular case, this 3 is in the thousandths position, and using our rules, we look at the next number to the right to determine do we round up or not, and you'll notice, well, there isn't anything. Well, we know that if there isn't anything, that value behind the decimal is a 0. So obviously, and we do not round up with 0. So my answer in this particular case, I don't actually have to round anything. It's already rounded for me in this particular case, this particular instance. So I can simply just bring all of my existing numbers down, and I'm all set. 24,356 and 453 thousandths. Now, one other thing that will happen every once in a while, and I want to bring this up, is there may be an opportunity at times where you have to carry, okay, in your rounding. And so in this particular case, we are rounding to the nearest hundred, which this 9 right here is in the hundreds position. So we're going to look at the 5, and you know, well, oh, 5s round us up. Well, okay, we have to think our way through this. Okay, if I round 9 up 1, that means it becomes 10. Well, just like in addition, when I have 10, I have to carry a 1. Well, that means that this 9 now plus 1 becomes 10, and I carry a 1. 2 plus 1 is 3, and so we end up with these values here because of our rounding up having to carry. Now, this 5 will become a 0 because we're rounding. This 6 will become a 0. These things behind the decimal will go away. But in this particular case, rounding to the nearest hundred caused me to have to actually, I'm not actually rounding the whole number up, it's just going up to the next 100. Well, the next 100 beyond 900 is 1,000, and that 1,000 caused me to have to carry over through the number just like I would if I were adding. So there are specific cases and things where you may have to do a little bit of carrying and adding, 1, 2, 3 places in this particular case to make it work. So, all right, time for you to keep calm and solve some more math problems. So good luck. I am available for help if you need me.